Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
We are joined by the co-host for the Backlog. What's the actual name of y'all's podcast?
Backlog Breakdown.
Backlog Breakdown. That's why I keep getting it confused.
If you just throw
I keep wanting to say
backlog and then
down.
a bunch of other words that start with B afterwards, you know, you just it fits our theme.
Right. So I've been saying like backlog beatdown so long that I'm having difficulty with the breakdown.
Yep.
But one of the hosts is someone who has joined us before. So Nate McKeever, welcome back.
Hey, it's nice to be stuck in the Super Nintendo again.
It's a little cramped, but people get used to it.
I was, you know, it's surprisingly roomy. It's cozy. Yeah, cozy. You know.
The walls are yellowing a little bit. There's no way to prevent that.
Yeah.
We thought it was smoking at first, but it ends up not being the case. It's just age. But the other host of the Backlog Breakdown is a new guest for our show. Is Nate McKeever? Thank you. Wow, this is going to be really bad. Josh Broccolo. I'm gonna go get some coffee. Y'all talk for a while.
All right. Well, I think we have our coffee. Actually, we brought it with us from the outskirts of the Super Nintendo. Have you ever tried adding a mapper chip in here? Because I think you could get a little bit of expansion if you have one of those carts that just plug it in. You know, see what happens.
Yeah, it's like knocking out a wall and you know, opening up your dining room or something.
It's amazing. You get some Mode 7 in here. It would be pretty awesome.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, actually, I think mapper chip was NES. Dang it. Anyway.
What in the world were we talking about?
Introduction.
Backlog Breakdown. So since I last talked with Nate, y'all started a podcast because you want to be like us.
Yeah.
We wanted to start our own zoo. We saw that movie, we started a zoo, and we listened to your podcast, and we were just like, we want to start a zoo. So that's what we did.
But for books. I mean, okay.
So give me a little rundown about what in the world your podcast is
A breakdown?
No,
Okay.
yeah, like metal
That's
breakdowns.
a really good.
Metal.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh,
You know,
cool.
Course Paint Kirby and Brain Jazz Metal, and so
Sounds like actually a fantastic podcast.
I would say that and Josh can correct me if I'm wrong or if he disagrees, but I think it's
Have y'all not discussed this before?
yeah,
Shouldn't this have been in the planning stages?
Did you get a memo? I sent my memo to the special filing cabinet for the memos that my secretary puts them all in. I didn't look through it. I'm sorry.
I got this fax earlier, but I just threw it away because, anybody who wants to actually, get a hold of me will not send me faxes. I refuse to interact with that medium. No, but we primarily, I would describe the podcast as sort of a time management / stewardship podcast via the lens of our chief hobby, video games. And so it's really sort of an examination, and in that it's us sort of walking through some of our processes and sort of how we manage our time, how we're finding that balance between work, family. Josh now has school, and then still enjoying the hobby, but at the same time stewarding the hashtag backlogs and finances, but stewarding your time, your money well and wisely, and learning how to put video games in their proper place in the life of a believer.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is the breakdown portion. I mean, obviously that what Nate had just talked about, we're breaking down kind of the hobby as well, but we do enjoy talking about, things like what we're currently playing and if there are any sort of redemptive themes in that as well, because we do think, because this is a big hobby of ours, we do think that there are redemptive elements in video games. It's not just all time wasters, and so we want to try to bring those to the forefront as well.
Wait. So are you telling me that Christians are allowed to play video games?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. John Piper would probably disagree with us, but and he's really smart, but I think he's wrong.
Also, Jesus never played a video game, so
yes.
So I think that makes him wrong too. Darn it! Do we have to stop the podcast now? I'm just kidding.
Well, as you all know, we Stephen and I have not, kept it any sort of secret that we are Christian, but not all of our audience obviously is, so y'all's approach is from a particularly Christian point of view. Is there a particular reason for that besides the fact that y'all are obviously going against the Bible by even playing video games or having beards for that matter? I'm pretty sure that beards are not allowed either.
Yeah, on that second one, bro, do you even Old Testament?
Have you seen Talladega Nights? He was an old man. He had a beard. Sorry.
I guess, just like when you sort of ask why we specifically come at it from sort of a Christian or a biblical sort of worldview perspective, I would say that the intention is that, at least for me, and this is, I'm just sort of like running at the mouth here a little bit, but I would say
I did not give them the questions beforehand for the audience. We already had an argument about that. They demanded it, and I said, I don't know the questions. I make this stuff up as I go.
And at which point we promptly fired our agent, and
I was not intending to ask that question, and y'all kind of had a deer in the headlights look. It's okay.
No, it's.
I'm trying to stall to give you more time.
I just really wanted to see what I looked like in 16 bits, and I'm happy. So, my work
Josh is
done.
like, I am not impressed with like the pear shape they gave my Sprite. I'm just saying, like, not happy about that at all. I've got to talk to somebody about that, or start going to a gym. I would say, just like we don't I try not to compartmentalize my life, and I'm not saying that I'm super great at that, but you definitely want to have this spot where there is no separation, where like the same ideally you're the same individual, like you're the same person throughout the week. So there isn't really a huge difference in the way that you handle your life or your business, or, in our particular case, your leisure time and your hobby time. Like there's no sort of like, well, this is like church stuff and then this is my video game stuff. Like, so I would just say, at times I've actually wondered, like, are we hitting it hard enough? Are we sort of, because I don't at the same time want to be heavy-handed. I think a lot of times, like, you can sort of over-spiritualize stuff, but I think, like, it's something that when it makes sense for the context of the conversation or where we're at, we're obviously going to talk about that. We're not going to try to inject like a false spirituality in that. Or like, when we see redemptive, like Josh brought up, when we see redemptive themes, we'll talk about that. And when we don't, okay, no harm, no foul. So, right. I'm looking at you now, Josh.
Sorry, I don't know if I was supposed to say something or not. No, yeah, I agree. It's not something that I even necessarily kind of thought through beforehand, if that makes any sense. Like, it just kind of comes out of, like, if my standard for living is what God says, what Scripture says, then that's going to trickle down into the different areas of my life, including video games. So and especially with the theme of the podcast is kind of taking a look and kind of a deep dive at this hobby, because I think the danger is that it becomes now I'm going to throw out Christianese. It becomes an idol. It becomes like the biggest thing in your life, and that's not something that I want for video games, even though I enjoy them. Like, and there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, except that I'm a Christian, but I'm in there of the devil. But other than that, no. So I guess I hadn't really kind of thought through like why exactly we kind of lean that way. It's just a part of kind of who I am, and so the things that I think of, the way that I see the world, the way that I see these hobbies, I want to align it with the overarching priority of God's revelation in my life. Does that make sense? And I still feel like I'm throwing out words there that I'm sorry. It kind of like in-group words for Christians.
Well, yeah, we might get emails later on that's like, what in the world were y'all talking about? But
who is Satan? And why did he make a video game?
Is that like Catan? Is that like the sequel?
There's a sequel to Catan? I'm run out to get it. Hold on.
Cut to 20 minutes later.
Anyone need any sheep?
I'm good, man, but I'm fishing for some lumber. I need some I need some of that sweet lumber. Oh, jeez. This is the last time he asks us for anything. Like, he's like, they're coming in here and derailing everything, and it's like, yeah.
It only fits so much into 16 bits. Come on, get back on track here.
So yeah, I mean, the reason I did ask you on is, I do think, especially for those of us who are engaged in podcasting, either as hosts or as consumers, is that the more we hear people talk about games and stuff, the more we want to buy a lot of them.
Yes.
And the more we want to spend time on them. And so, that's been a struggle, for me for a while, even before, taking up the podcast. But especially now, it's like, I've got to make room to actually play a game that I'm going to talk about. And that's why I have a bunch of guests on. That's why I invite y'all on. So I don't have to play anything new. I can stick to the Realm Online, Dragon Warrior.
Dude, all I'm gonna say,
at least for one more week,
is like mad props on that Dragon Warrior love. That's close to my heart. about an inch up and a couple inches to the left, and that's about where Dragon Quest resides.
Nice.
Are you guys Japanese? Because I thought Americans don't like Dragon Warrior.
No.
Well, I mean, I guess you are calling it Dragon Warrior, not Dragon Quest, so maybe you are
Sure.
Americans.
Well, you only call it Dragon Quest when it's appropriate. So it's like Dragon Quest 7, I think, is when.
Yeah.
So
Can I go on a tangent since y'all have been being tangent all night?
If you're asking
Alright,
permission,
so-
then no, but it's your podcast, so do what you want.
The NES game is called Dragon Warrior.
mm-hmm.
The SNES game is called Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III. The re-releases are retitled,
Yeah.
but those were the official titles of the game. It is not wrong to call them that.
I think so. Like a lot of times I just
I'm done.
No, I agree with your frustration. I empathize there, but I think a lot of times it is because it was so awkward and confusing. Like a lot of times you almost need to ask it for clarity's sake because
That's true.
because
yes.
it's like because I mean with the like those chibi sprite versions that they released for the DS or 3DS or whatever iteration of the Nintendo handheld it was, we actually got like legit copies of 2 and 3, the actual 2 and 3.
Right.
And so at that point in time, everything, scientific progress goes boink at that point in time. Like it's just like, up is down, cats and dogs living together, it's
Mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria.
Well, and Square Enix did not help because like when we got Super Mario Brothers to Japan, they retitled it The Lost Levels.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's no confusion
Mm-hmm.
in America what we're talking about. We can say Lost Levels, we can say Mario 2. We know what we're saying. And it's the same way with Dragon Warrior. Like they didn't start misnumbering them or anything. Once they got the rights to Dragon Quest back, they just started. The next one was Dragon Quest, whatever it was. But trying to misnumber everything, it was not helpful.
Well, the thing with Final Fantasy, you mentioned Final Fantasy II. The issue isn't with Final Fantasy II. It doesn't become an issue until Final Fantasy III. Because with Final Fantasy II, you're talking with your friends and you're just like, hey, you remember that good game, Final Fantasy II? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Final Fantasy IV. Yeah, that was a good game. That was good. No one I just blew out my microphone there. No one mistakes the Famicom Final Fantasy II for a good game. So, but when you hit Final Fantasy III, then you're like, oh yeah, remember that good game Final Fantasy III? And they're like, oh, which one are you talking about? In terms of Dragon Quest, though, didn't they re-release the some of the original? Like, I played 4 on DS, the DS re-release that used the engine from 5, and I'm pretty sure that was Quest, wasn't it? When they re-released it on DS,
The DS?
it was Dragon Quest 4.
I hope you're not looking at me. Cause
Okay,
Y'all know my console situation.
yeah,
Hold
that's
on.
true.
I will be right back and come to. I will figure out how to get back to the Super Nintendo in like 2 minutes. I'll be right back. Though I can check on this one.
I am so sorry you have to edit this.
This is
And you thought this would be easier than a bunch of robots.
right. The interview shows are supposed to be my break.
Dragon Quest
Honestly.
on
Okay.
the charts. It's
Dragon
Dragon Quest.
There you go.
Interesting.
So they messed up. But I do think that's only with 4. Now, they re-released the other ones on what? Game Boy Color? 1 through 3? I don't remember. Darn it. Not
On
smart
mobile,
enough.
they're Dragon
There
Quest.
you go. Oh, on mobile they are. Okay. So, there you go. So they got into the whole renaming stuff, too, here in America.
Yeah, if we're being honest, most people who are playing on mobile already probably lean towards that, anyways. So, like me, I bought all of them.
I started on Dragon Quest 1. Obviously, I've played it before, on mobile, and just because it was like $3.
Oh, wow.
And my friend said it was a pretty good port, and it really is a good port. It cuts down on the level grinding quite a bit, cuts down on the gold grinding, and it's great.
Nice. Because that is a good 50%
Are you
of that
moving away
game.
from the microphone to eat?
I was trying to do like a Michael Jackson GIF thing, like.
And I look over and I see Josh just like shoveling this popcorn into his face with this look on his face, and I couldn't stop it. I think I snorted a little bit when I laughed.
So this has been the unreleased episode of
This'll
the
We're gonna have another robot battle next week.
more robot battles.
More
robot battles.
So are we just going to talk about Dragon?
It's a new format. Me talking about Dragon Warrior, and then we have a robot battle, and then that's it.
There you go.
So-
There you go. We could totally talk Dragon Warrior for a while.
Maybe we should.
Love.
I mean, if that's what you want to talk about, we can totally talk about just more Dragon Warrior and Dragon Quest. But
I don't think you've talked about that before, have you? It's a new topic.
Dragon Warrior? No,
Okay.
no.
But no, Dragon Quest. I'm sure you talked about Dragon Warrior, but Dragon Quest,
Dragon Quest?
Okay.
No, not at all.
There you go.
Not at all. All right. So, y'all are doing a horrible job promoting your podcast. I gave you time. We're going to move on. So, the podcast actually, and Nate, you and I mentioned this last time, kind of came out of the Backlog Book Club, where we talk about backlog beatdowns, and then you started the Backlog Breakdown because you're trying to get me to stumble over my words.
we're not. I'm not a particularly creative type. I mean, I just sort of I just recycle material until people are like, no, we're done.
Right.
But yeah, so the book club, and we talked about this last time I was here. But the book club is really just, it started in TRG. We start with this thing called hashtag.
The Reform Gamers, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to interpret everything y'all say for the listening audience here.
That's a group for people who used to be gamers and no longer are. The Reform Gamers.
Now we just, we stopped playing altogether, and now we just talk about Taco Bell and,
Well, we don't actually
That's
play
actually
the
true.
games.
That's legit.
But so there was this. There was just a quick recap. I basically have a very large backlog, which for anybody, when we use that terminology, here in this context, it means the pile of video games that I haven't gotten around to playing. And just for the record, Josh's pile is much bigger than mine. He has a whole garage dedicated to his stash, whereas most of mine exists in the cloud.
A whole section in my garage, excuse me. Golly.
But it was just basically I was trying to sort of be a little more intentional about playing some of the games I had been sitting on for a while. And so I threw out this thing called the Backlog Breakdown, and we did a backlog draft, which is you submit, I'm going to just try and recap this real quick because we already sort of talked about this once. But you submit a bunch of games from your pile, like 15, and then everybody sort of goes and picks games out of that pile for you to play. And at the end of the drafting, you end up with 4 or 5, maybe ish. 4 or 5 games to sort of burn through, over a couple of months. And there's not a lot of rules to it. It's just more often than not, it's just sort of play it long enough to figure out whether or not you like it, or you just kind of can make a hard pass and just have fun, play some of the games you own. And so it's just an attempt to sort of be a little more responsible with the hobby.
Yeah, so and we'll get a little bit more into this, but it's the goal is not to say don't buy new games.
No.
unless you can't afford them or unless you just don't have the time for them, then don't buy new games. But really consider, kind of consider the whole picture of what do I have? What have I already dumped money on? And should I at least take a gander at all these piles of games that I have, before setting off and adding to the giant pile?
I just keep them in the garage. That way I never have to look at them.
Well, see, Josh bought all the games early on, so now he doesn't need to buy anymore because he bought all the games. But it's definitely not about not buying games, but it is about encouraging people to be a little wiser with their time and money. And I mean, like, there are some things that, like, I have been a day one purchaser of several games, and we've talked about some of that. Like, I brought up God of War several times, the new God of War for PlayStation 4. I think it's a phenomenal game, but it's definitely a game where I think about it, and it's like, if I would have just held off a little bit, I could have, it's not like buying it on day one got me some sort of like net. There wasn't some sort of like content that was only available at that, or anything significant. And so it's it is just, you want people to be mindful of again, that hashtag backlogs and finances, and so the second part of that hashtag is finances. Like like my wife and I, we revamped our budget. We've sort of re-examined stuff, and we've had, over the last couple of months, there's just been some, I wouldn't say hardships, but, things have gotten a little tight. And so I have to be a lot more intentional about how I spend my money, which is a good thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's actually one of my things that I have down is the finances part, because I don't buy anything.
Dude.
It's, But that's the reason I do a retro gaming podcast, is because I can't keep up with the new games, and I'm way behind on consoles, and my computer definitely can't run stuff. But I'm finding doing the podcast that, and this is the reason that, why in the world would we be concerned about buying games on a retro gaming podcast? It's because we talk about these things. We talk about them. We get we get on Twitch and play these old games. And when we put out the Dragon Warrior remix music, the number one reaction I got was, I need to play this game again.
Yeah.
And it happens like that all the time. It's like, the last Big 20. I know there's one coming up, but the last Big 20. And if y'all don't know, or for listeners who don't know, the Big 20 is they get 20 NES games, and they have a goal for each one. It might be finishing the game. It might be making a certain area. It might be, beating so many puzzles or whatever it is. And they have they have a race to see who can meet all those goals in what time period. And so it usually lasts a few hours, and people just start chugging away at game one, and they have a lot of time to practice. But the last Big 20, just watching them play Little Samson, I absolutely fell in love with the game. I played the game. I adore this game. I am absolutely in love with this game. And if I had any money, I would be tempted to spend it on this crazy expensive cart.
Yeah.
Thankfully it is crazy expensive, and I have no money, so I will not spend money on it. But, so it's like, everything that comes up like that, it's a temptation to, if I'm a collector, to go find it. Or even if I'm not a collector, but there's still, the temptation there is to jump on that game when my time might be better spent playing some of the games that I'm already started on or have already spent money on.
Yeah. I mean, and that's,
or maybe not, because Little Samson is amazing game. Sorry, go ahead.
And I'll definitely, I'll definitely be sort of looking at that game a little differently. But we sort of talked a little bit about your your words.
I'm not editing any of this. I'm just throwing
do it.
all of it in.
Go ahead. Wait, Josh, for the most part, I don't make nearly as many sounds on ours, but Josh still makes it so that I don't sound stupid. But
I cut out a lot of my own but I don't cut out any guest
there you
because
go.
I don't want to take their words out of context. It's a respect thing.
But
That makes
all
sense.
I was
and
gonna
you
say-
look way better with someone who has a lot of and you have none.
Yeah.
You're just like, you are the professional. This guy doesn't know what the heck he's doing.
so after this, you're gonna look really good because
You're welcome.
yes.
Y'all are officially guest hosts now.
But
What?
We record weekly. Put in your schedule. Backlogs and finances.
hashtag backlogs and finances. But your last podcast or one of your last couple of podcasts where you mentioned Little Samson and we were sort of talking about that. And I remember that game from I had a friend, I think, who owned it.
Oh my gosh.
Or whatever.
I was going to say, if that conversation started going in the way of, I had the game, but
no, dude.
then
No. Yeah. No, but I think I had a friend like back in the day who owned a copy and I played a little bit of it and I remember really enjoying it, but it was sort of one of those things where I just don't know. Yeah. So, but now you've kind of got me thinking about it and I sort of went off on a tangent about how it is a shame how, and this is just, again, I feel like every time I say this that I need to clarify something. I do not hate Nintendo. I just hate most of the things they do. And I just don't understand why games like Little Samson and some of these other harder to find and much in demand games for the NES weren't just kicked over onto the NES Classic. Like it's incomparable to me. Like I'm looking at that and I'm saying this makes zero sense. But Nintendo they do make some, they're Nintendo and Nintendo's going to Nintendo, but
yeah,
like, and it's, like the Switch is a fantastic device. The NES Classic is just a really cool device, but sometimes some of the decisions they make, I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But,
Yes.
Yeah, I have eBay pulled up to the side here because I'm thinking, I haven't checked prices on Little Samson I'm not that much of a collector that I actually care. If a game is more than 60, I'm just like, I'm not going to get that. So I just, when you said it's really expensive, I know this is like one of the most rare NES games. So I was thinking like $500 maybe, something like that. And the first listing that I popped up on is $1,200. Here's $950. There's a lot of fake carts from China that are going for $300. The Famicom game, and Famicom games are way cheaper because I don't know if they just mass produced them or what. Famicom versions are going for $250, $300. So this is crazy. This one is just stupid. This is like sealed in one of those cases. It has like the what's it called, the VGA thing that's like it's
the
officially
Nintendo seal of approval.
Going for $29,000. I mean, that's like that listing is just to say, hey, look, guys, I have this.
That might be listed at 29,000.
Exactly.
I don't know that that's going for anything.
No, he's just showing off. Or she. I'm sorry, I just assumed their gender.
Or they're just super desperate.
I'm pretty sure that's a dude.
They're just like, I'm going to buy a trailer park with that.
Right.
Like the whole trailer park.
Right.
Yeah.
Honey, we've got some financial problems. Don't worry.
I have.
Once I unload this baby, it's
$29,000. The box only, the PAL version of the box only, $320. It's not even in good okay, sorry. Anyway, sorry. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Little Samson, cool game.
cool. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, all right. So this is exactly the problem. I mentioned Little Samson. I talk about Little Samson, and now Nate wants to play Little Samson.
No, Nate's not going to because he is a man of conviction. But
Right.
He sure wishes he could.
Yes. And by the way, that is a reference to y'all's a really excellent episode on emulations and ROMs that y'all that the listeners really do need to check out. So
thank you.
As this episode comes out, it will be the last episode on that y'all uploaded, and so y'all definitely need to check that out. I thought it was great.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
I enjoyed your perspective as well on your last episode. There's good stuff, or not last. There's two other. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Your
previous emulation episode.
I throw off the numbering when I upload 2 episodes in 1 week. Actually, I think they were a day apart. That wasn't nice to me.
It's your podcast. You can do what you want.
Exactly.
So
yeah, this is the exact type of thing, and I think this is why y'all can do a continuing podcast on this topic instead of just doing one speech of, hey, quit spending all your money and time on games, because it really is kind of a different approach with everybody. We're all, I mean, each of us is struggling in a different way on this topic, even though it's under the same big umbrella.
Well, and definitely you're going to revisit topics from time to time. But one of the other things we do as well is sort of, instead of just saying,
I'm gonna do a new series on Dragon Warrior starting next week.
Are you gonna rebrand it? Series on Dragon Quest.
Yeah,
it's Dragon
like,
Quest is
I already covered Dragon Warrior.
We're gonna remix some music.
You already covered Dragon Warrior. Now it's time to cover Dragon Quest. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, yeah, you're gonna recycle sort of a general topic from time to time. But one of the other things we do, we talk about the games that we're playing and sort of how, like, we try to, incorporate a little bit of discussion of how we spend our time in the weeks previous. And we have additional goals, like, we're not always super good about, and when I say we, I'm mostly referring to myself. I'm just sort of like trying to throw Josh under the bus a little bit.
No, I'm not good either. I'm not good.
Well, no man is good. Yeah.
Jesus, Juke.
Ooh, Jesus, Juke.
Jeez.
Sorry, I
can't even keep myself on track.
Talking about how we talk about other things. We set other goals as well. It's not just video games. Talk about books. Talk about movies and TV shows and other things we've accumulated in the backlog.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so we'll always have something, I think, in some ways to talk about, even just in regards to sort of like current material, and then be able to draw application out of sort of that week's experience. And then there will be other times, like, Wesley brought up emulation for us, and it was sort of, it's a relevant topic right now because of all the closure and everything else on all the websites shutting down and everything. So, we're definitely, we have to sort of, we're never going to, I think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we're ever going to be at like the front edge of like gaming, like trying to keep up with the newest, latest, best stuff. Yeah. But I think there will always be like discussions that can be had, sort of about how we can engage this hobby wisely. And like, just to give it a bit of an example, like I spent, how many was it? Like almost 80 hours playing this game, Battle Chasers. And so now I've and the fact that like, that's like 3.5 regular days.
That is a lot of chasing battles.
Yeah, dude. So many battles. I chased them down. All those battles. But so I threw out like a bit of an impromptu poll, and I knew that I needed like a shifting gears sort of before I decided to like tackle project, or not project, but Octopath Traveler or whatever I'm going to pull on next, sort of next deep dive. So right now I'm playing a lot of like side scroller sort of Metroidvanias. I think the general consensus was I should play Hollow Knight, and I was telling Josh I hopped on that and I was playing it for. I was like, oh, I'll sit down and play this like for an hour, and it was next thing I know, it was like, oh, it's 9 p.m. I need to go to bed. And I was like, so. Definitely that was like an issue where I mean some of the stuff we've sort of batted around a little bit too is like the issue of sleep and how and like because like a lot of times, if we're being honest, like a lot of times we sacrifice sleep in order to get like an extra hour of gaming, whereas I'm not always,
or podcast episodes.
Well, noble sacrifice and all that, But yeah, and just like I think there are a lot of topics that we don't necessarily tie into how we recreate or how we engage our hobby that are at least worth consideration. Does that make any sense? Like, there's a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily like. And I'm sort of springing this on Josh, but like I've been sort of on like a physical fitness kick where I'm like I used to lift weights 3 times a week, had like spent way too much money on supplements and like all that stupid stuff, and now I'm not there. Again, this pear-shaped Sprite, I am very unhappy with this. I need to talk to somebody.
Don't you walk like 50 miles a day?
It's about 10, 11 right now. So it's about 50, 60 miles a week. But it doesn't change. A lot of that's like dietary. Like I've been consuming entirely too many carbs and too many sugars, and just like, it's like, oh, I need a sugar bump. I'll eat this candy bar, and but I think that's Josh's like cue. He's like, Nate, you're talking too much. He's like, so I'm just gonna shove popcorn in my face and make a stupid, but no. So like one of the things at some point in time, like I said, I'm sort of springing this on Josh, but I'd like to talk about like just physical fitness and physical like stewardship of our bodies, because like that's especially in a hobby where we are so prone to like, dude, it's very stationary, it's very sedentary, it's very you sit on your duff and you
crack open a Mountain Dew,
wiggle your fingers for the next 5 hours. So
your cheesy Dorito stained fingers.
So good.
That's really interesting, because that's something I'm really I'm really struggling with right now, because in some changes of circumstances in life, I'm having to cut down on. I was doing Taekwondo for a long time, and I'm having to cut down pretty drastically on that. And I know that like with trying to really do like a push as a Twitch streamer, while maintaining everything else that's going on and all the changes that are going on, it's like that's something that I really need to keep in mind. And so I haven't really put it up yet. It's in the corner. I haven't announced it yet, but it's in the corner on a lot of my streams now. But I'm putting up like a weight tracker and an inches lost tracker in my stream, just as kind of an encouragement for my chat to start getting on me about it, and just to kind of make my health a bit more public, and hopefully help shame me into exercising.
Because
did you know fat shaming is bad?
The best way to motivate anyone.
Shame is awesome.
Is shame,
dude. I'm just gonna. I listen to the Joe Rogan's podcast every once in a while, which I cannot, in good conscience, like recommend all the time, because that dude does a lot of drugs and swears a lot. Wow. Oh yeah, dude. he had Waylon Jennings, Shooter Jennings, on there, and they're like smoking weed while they're recording the podcast. It was like, I'm listening to it, I'm going. But I think they live in like California or something, so like it doesn't matter out there. But he was talking about like how a lot of times like we do culture, like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I just realized I rabbit trailed again. But he was basically just talking about like the effect, and like he was talking about two friends of his who would basically fat shame each other, and these dudes lost like 60 pounds apiece, and they're in like the best shape of their lives and stuff. And I said, like, you know, it's one thing to just be cruel, but I think there's like, and you know, there's a lot of, and again, we're sort of like we're a little off topic, but I think like, you know, there's a lot of stuff even there where we've sort of like, anytime I feel bad or somebody like says something or does something that makes me feel bad about something I'm doing or saying, like that's automatically like, oh, that's terrible. I shouldn't feel bad. And it's like, well, no, sometimes feeling bad is the appropriate response. Mm-hmm. Like if you're neglecting your health, like, and it just again, like this is probably a little bit of a sneak peek to when we actually get around, but I will look at the individual.
You heard it here first.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
But I would.
This is why all the Backlog fans need to be listening to me first, and then their podcast. Get the heads up of what's coming next. Sorry,
so we changed on you.
I derailed your derailing.
We never do a fitness episode, and then you, sir, are fake news.
But no. I would just, I guess, like to finish out, I would say to the individual who's playing games like 40 hours a week and sort of neglecting that aspect of, I would be like, yo, get off, like turn the console off, turn the PC off, turn whatever off, get up, like go walk around, go walk your dog if you have one, or just like go walk around your block, you know, drink more water, like instead of like picking up the 6 Mountain Dew, drink some water. You know, it's like, and again, I think there's definitely like, and there's, you know, but I would just sort of say like, that's just as sinful as, you know, any other sort of like neglect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, just to go back for just a second and not to get too weird with this, but I think also part of that whole like fat shaming discussion, and how it can actually be beneficial. I think it also has to do with, like the way that guys are wired in general. Like dudes like show affection by making fun of each other. You know what I mean? So if you're calling someone out in kind of like a fun way, like in a way like we're bros and so I can call you on your crap kind of a thing, like that's different than someone who actually struggles with like body image issues, because that can be a totally different subject. So I mean, I think there's that angle as well.
Sure.
Also, I mean, maybe we're just setting it up where if you ever get out of this Super Nintendo, maybe you could come on our show and we can talk about this together. Derail all over the place there.
About how fat I am?
No.
Cool.
It'd be actually
about your Sprite, you know?
About how like trimming a few pixels off that Sprite, bro. You know, like just a couple.
Well, see, yeah. So this and this actually ties in really to what I think the value of this conversation is because there's so many demands on us, and so many different things vying for our attention. That we really do need to be thinking through, you know, how we're dealing with our time, how we're dealing with our money, how we're dealing with the balance of all of this, you know, very critically and very carefully. And that's an ongoing thing. I mean, it's like all of my gaming goals changed when I made Twitch affiliate, because that was the decision of, okay, this is the direction I'm going to start going in. This is what I want, you know, my gaming to be for the future. And so, you know, backlogs became not as big of a thing. Finance is not as big of a thing because I'm not spending any more money. I have the games that I'm playing, but it's really becoming much more of a focus on time and how am I making the best use of this time. And it doesn't help that I chose for my speed running a game that takes me 6 hours in a single sitting to beat. And that was kind of dumb. I should have, you know, gone for one of these 10-minute games, but
Yeah, I mean, you gotta start somewhere, man. Baby steps, dude. Baby steps.
Baby steps to 7 hours in the first try.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I mean, at least you didn't go for Battle Chasers.
well,
Right, yes.
you know, and I've said before, I'm a slow gamer, so you know that it probably takes like normal people like 50, 60 hours to beat that game, and I'm like, nope, I'm good. Like, oh, you gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Oh, see now, I grew up in the time. You know, I grew up in the time, and I think I'm a bit older than y'all. But you know, the whole concept of speed running in the 90s or late 80s wasn't really a thing. I mean, we were all talking like, you know, how strong is your Final Fantasy team? You know, what level did you actually get into? And if you got everybody up to 99, it's like, oh, that's a really good team. Instead of, ooh, that's a giant waste of time.
Well, and there was that like false equivalency too, though, where it's like, and I came out of like the JRP tradition, but it was like if I can't get like 40 hours out of this game, it's trash, and I'm not going to touch it. And it was like, you know, in hindsight, I'm like, man, there's a lot of 40, 50 hour games I played that I'm like, I kind of wish I hadn't.
Yep.
Like Final Fantasy VIII.
Ooh,
Sorry.
he went there. I was gonna say 7,
Dang.
but
Oh. Sorry. No. That's like one of my games from my childhood that I dumped a ton of time. I think I put almost 80 hours into it, and like I just felt when I finally beat it, I just felt this overwhelming sense of like, what have I just done with my life?
Yeah.
That's
Well, in Final Fantasy VIII is an interesting case too, because it's like the more you put into it, the more the game pushes back. And so like I'm one, I've dumped I did a very high level run of that game, a very high level run. And, you know, now going back and it's like I grew up on Dragon
Exactly.
Warrior. I grew up on Final Fantasy 2. It's like, you know, let's get those levels up. And so now that I kind of want to go back and do a low level run of it, just because it's like, you know, that's actually a really intriguing idea that just none of us at the time were quite ready for, because we were used to, I have to get at least level 60 in a Final Fantasy game to beat it, because that's the level at which you beat Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, I had no idea of the way that the mechanics of the game did that. It was primarily for me the story that really just like the characters too, but the way that the story ended really just felt like they didn't know what they were doing, and so they were like, "Oh yeah, I guess everyone actually knew each other, and you just forgot."
But Squall was totally the best looking guy at that dance.
Oh my gosh. I was an emo kid in high school. That dude.
Yeah, he was actually my least favorite Final Fantasy hero. And it actually really pissed me off, because Renoa was like my second favorite Final Fantasy heroine ever. Rydia, by the way, is number 1.
Wait, she's better than Terra or Tina, however you wanna translate it.
I really do like Terra too. I like Terra actually. Terra and Celis, I thought.
Yeah,
really great.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
At
sorry.
least I'm just glad that Eris/Aerith didn't make your list at all.
Gosh.
Like, is my Final Fantasy VII hater showing?
And that's why we do. Yeah,
Yo, where's
retro
Sephiroth?
podcasts,
So I'm gonna like talk some trash to his face. His stupid polygonal face.
Can we all agree that the best PlayStation Final Fantasy was 9?
Yes.
Sweet.
Oh man,
Josh,
I'm
you're
sorry.
taking too long.
So the reason I hesitate is because I love tactics. Not 9 is great.
Tactics.
9
yes.
So it depends what you mean.
You just
You're
pulled out
talking-
the wild
If
card.
you're talking mainline, yes.
Mainline,
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
But Tactics was an amazing
But I
game.
love Tactics, so it's
Tactics
different.
that's a good one.
So, Backlog, making me want to play all these games again. This happens every time I speak with you.
We're good for some things, you know.
Can I also say it's really good just to talk with other people who dig retro games? You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't know, maybe we're just in the same like sort of season of life where, you know, you don't have as much time, so you have to choose your games a little. You have to be a little more particular with the games that you decide to play, not like spend 65 hours on a DS game.
You know, I
shame.
FF12 was the last one I played, and it was played recently, and I adore the game. I absolutely adore the game. But I find myself playing it in so differently.
Your sort of take on that, just I before I forget, and I don't mean to derail you, but your take on that is where like you basically said like they were like doing like the Kurosawa like with Vaughn and Pinello.
Oh yeah,
or whatever her stupid name was. She was awful. Like so was Vaughn. Like.
Gosh, they were so bad.
But when I think about that, like looking at that through the lens of like the Kurosawa like storytelling, like the R2D2 C3PO sort of like lens, I'm like, no, that's actually like a really kind of brilliant mechanism. I think it was just really poorly implemented. So
it was very poorly implemented, especially because like the first 5-10 hours of the game, you're just dealing with Vaughn. And you want to just smack him. But then
they introduced Balthier or however you say his name, and I'm like, but game's good. Like they could have.
Game is good. Oh,
right there.
Balthier is one of my top Final Fantasy heroes of all time. I think Fran is up there too.
I just want her
everybody
to put more clothes on. That's all. That's all. Like I don't understand how wearing a corset is helpful. You know, but you know,
it's the same art. It's the same armor rating. It's the same armor rating.
Oh man.
But yeah, Balthier was, and it's like the second he drops onto the screen and just immediately announce, no, Vaughn, I'm the hero. You're not the hero. You know, it's just the game turned around immediately. It was great. But you know, I'm finding myself, I'm like, I no longer, like every other Final Fantasy game I played, I basically 100%ed.
Whoa.
This one, it's like that hunt. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And, you know, the side quest, no, I'm not going to do that. I need to move along. I just don't have that time anymore. I did, by the way, I did in Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo, the good Final Fantasy II. I leveled all of my characters to level 99 trying to get that stupid pink tail and still didn't get it. Do y'all know about that?
I don't. Tail? I don't.
Okay.
But
so there's a room in the last dungeon where there's a certain battle that I think there's a 1 in 64 chance of getting that battle. And then if you beat the battle, there's a 1 in 64 chance that they're going to drop a pink tail. And then you take that tail to the guy who collects the tails. I forgot exactly where he is, but he gives you something cool. And it's just a time burner because, I mean, we went from level 60 to level 99 just looking for that tail and never got it. I'm a little.
I'm so sorry.
It's the only way I did not 100% that game.
Sad reacts only.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's like, you know, the way I play games has changed a lot. And, you know, I'm much more interested in the 30-hour game or 25-hour game than I was when I was looking at JRPGs in the mid 90s and going, I hope this is at least 60 hours.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, and again, there was a game for, I think, the PS3 and the 360 called Gun, which was sort of a precursor to the Red Dead games. The original Red Dead, the one for PS2. It was like a contemporary. But I remember that game, like you could do like 100% playthrough in like 10 to 12 hours. And that was the first time I was like, absolutely like, no, this game like is encapsulated in like, just a normal playthrough in like 6 to 8 hours. And it's fantastic. And I just was like, boop,
That's cool.
down the rabbit hole. And I was like, after that, yeah, there was a definite like sort of shifting gear there for me as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, another thing that happens in the group that I want to bring up is that people encourage everyone to buy new games.
Sometimes.
And that's specifically and this is no way, set in stone. It looks like there's, some talk and some polls going around that we as a group are going to be playing a game for September. Mm-hmm. And I'm hesitant to bring it up because there's 2 games in the poll, and if one of them wins, then I will be playing it on stream, and very excited to do so. And if it's the other game, I will not. Not that I have anything against the game. I just it doesn't fit into my into what I'm doing right now.
Into your niche.
And so, right. I got to keep the keep the subscribers happy.
No,
So-
that's and again, that was our boy Wesley, man. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
he pitched it. Well, he just like sort of like, I think posted something about maybe doing it, and then he reached out to us, and I was like, yeah, dude, if that's something you want to do, and right now it's Legend of Zelda 2. And then, is it Kirby's Dream Land 2?
Kirby's Adventure.
Kirby's Adventure.
Yeah, so, Paul wants Legend of Zelda 2, and I'm down for that because, I was thinking about, I don't know if I've ever beaten that game. I know that at one point in time I was fairly obsessed with it, so never beat
I'm
it.
the only one in the room who's beaten that game. I'm very surprised.
Well, you're just better than us.
I wasn't going to say it, but, Yeah, no.
Yeah, oddly
not
enough,
true.
I got both Zelda games really late.
Okay.
And as an illustration on how late I got them, both of them are gray carts and not gold.
Oh, you filthy heathen.
So, and I, at the time, I didn't, like a lot of people at the time, I was just like, on Zelda 2, I was like, what is this? I don't like this at all. And it's grown in my estimation quite a bit over the years. So I'm kind of pumped. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks like right now Kirby's Adventure is gaining ground.
Uh-oh.
So
I still haven't cast my vote yet. So, and because this is a beneficial or a benevolent dictatorship, whatever I say goes. Isn't that how that works? No. Oh, okay. My bad.
You let people have a vote.
And then I just
as long
do
as
what
they
I
vote
want
for what you
anyways.
Just sign into
right.
your other 6 Facebook accounts that you have, those fake ones, and vote there.
We don't talk about those.
Illuminati. Controlling
Illuminati confirmed.
All of a sudden, at the last second, we had 6 new votes of people who don't participate in the group, and they voted in alphabetical order.
I'm trying to find it now. I can't.
It is at the moment. It is 3 votes to 4.
Oh.
And so by the time this episode comes out, this I don't know how long the poll's going, but it's quite a bit longer than when we're recording this, and so hopefully we'll have an answer by then. But yeah, it's like I'm pretty pumped about this, and I think even if my game loses, I'll finish up Phantasy Star and I might do it anyways because I'm pretty interested now.
Yeah.
So it was not on my list, and now it's back on the backlog because of the group.
Yes, we got you to add more games to your backlog.
Well, no, it sounds to me like it was on the backlog.
It really, it was on the backlog because I do own it.
Okay, it's like just in a corner in your garage
cart, which is
that you need to pull out. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm trying. Okay, so y'all are looking at my stream setup.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the audience of a podcast is not because it's audio. But
If they could only see
I do
what
have-
we do.
I do have the SNES games up here,
Nice.
but
Dude.
I'm trying to figure out a way if there's like I could put the NES one.
It's like, dude, like I just need to emphasize to people the way that SNES and NES games look, inside from the inside of a Super Nintendo, it's super weird. It's breaking my brain. I'm just saying, like
There's a lot of lights and colors.
it's like, yeah, it's I just don't. I don't have.
It's like when
context
you
for
go
it.
underwater and you look up at the rest of the world above the water. It's like
Yeah.
that.
but better
Yeah.
and more pixelated.
So, I guess the takeaway in all this is quit buying new games.
Yeah.
Pack up the consoles.
Video games are bad. Okay.
Go vote for Zelda 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, I feel like whenever I talk about this, I do need to sort of like throw out the caveat. Like, I am not opposed to buying new games or buying more games.
Yep.
I just think, is it, I'm going to forget the reference now because my brain is old and Big
Lebowski? It's a Big
no,
Lebowski.
it was not a Big Lebowski. Oh, I wish I had a Big Lebowski reference. No, I was thinking. I want to say it's in Romans 12 where it says it talks about taking every thought captive, and there's a lot of times I've heard that used several times, and when it talks about like purity and how you need to be intentional about like what when you're thinking about sexy stuff that you shouldn't be thinking about. I don't have like when you're being a filthy sinner, and I'm not trying to be cute about this, so
This is a PG show.
but when you are thinking about things that you ought to, like a lot of times, like you got to take every thought captive, and I think even so more than that is and I think too about Ephesians 5:15 through 16 that says about being wise with your time because the days are evil, and I just think like there is really merit and in an entertainment saturated culture, we don't do either one of those things. We don't look at this stuff, throwing around more like Christianese buzzwords, but like with intentionality. Like, we are not super intentional about thinking about just examining like our thought life. And so I think for me, the biggest hope that I have for the breakdown really is to just sort of get people to ask some of those questions and to be a little more, and again, using sort of that buzzword, intentional and in examining some of the motives behind that, and not just sort of reflexively like adding to the pile, but to just be, a little more cautious and thoughtful in a lot of that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's why we started this podcast in particular is because we do have large backlogs. Like I spent a good amount of time just kind of like collecting a bunch of games that I'm like, okay, I'll get around to that. I've heard that's a good game, and in my case, it was like older system. I went for older systems so I could, like the Wii in particular, I have a ton of games for Wii because they were like $5 a piece, like super cheap stuff that are like really good games. So there are things like that. We do have these large backlogs, and it kind of, like you said, after a while, you just stop thinking about it, and you're like, okay, well, what else can I get? You're always looking for, in my case, always looking for sales and deals and, ways that you can get stuff on the cheap. But not really stopping to think like, okay, now that I've budgeted, my money to see how much, that I can get deals for these games, am I actually budgeting my time? Like, do I actually think I have the time to play these games? Or am I just in, I think you coined this term, just a mere accumulation mode, just like this materialistic mindset. You asked us earlier about how or why I don't know. You made mention of how we speak to Christians a lot on our podcast. Well, from what Nate just said, he quoted scripture and talking about how we ought to take our thoughts captive and things like that. Well, if you're not, if you don't worship the God of the Bible, Socrates has a nice quote that is burned into my brain, and it's just that the unexamined life is not worth living. Because if you know anything about the Socratic method and how he would ask questions to teach people, that was kind of his thing, is like, kind of don't take things for granted. And we can go hold down, that's another rabbit trail we don't necessarily need to go down. But I think that, that's kind of what we try and do, is really stop and take a look at some of the habits that we have, particularly within the area of video games or entertainment in general, and see if it's actually beneficial or if we're harming ourselves. If we have to take those jabs of like, bro, have you been playing too much? Have you been where are your priorities really?
Game shaming.
Yes, nice. Game shaming. Your backlog
shaming.
is way too fat, bro. You need to calm that down.
You don't need that. You don't need the new Spider-Man. I'm smacking my own hand.
How long is that game supposed to be? Yeah. Anyways, that doesn't matter. We don't have to.
I don't need to think about it right now. It's like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
There you go. Put it in the garage.
Well, yeah, and I really do appreciate y'all coming on. I think this is this is a question of kind of increasing importance to me as kind of my gaming empire expands, first into podcasting, then into Twitch, and just, and my priorities in gaming changes, to constantly be asking those questions and stuff. And so I've really appreciated the group, and I have really enjoyed the podcast, so far. And so y'all keep going.
Thanks,
And for those listening, please do check them out. If you're looking for the group, that is the Backlog Book Club.
The hashtag Backlog.
Hashtag Backlog Book Club.
Mm-hmm.
And inside the book club, where there might be the beatdown. But
you will see hashtag Backlog Beatdowns. So many hashtags. All the hashtags. We have the best hashtags. Nobody does hashtags like we do hashtags. Our hashtags, everybody tells us they're just the best.
I've been hashtagging for years. No one knows hashtags like I know hashtags.
So for the podcast, that is the Backlog Breakdown. Mm-hmm. And we will have links to all of that, because there's no way our audience is going to be able to keep that straight, since they fried their brains out already on video games.
Atari links?
So we will have links in the show notes.
Cool.
Thanks. Hey, no, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for letting us come in here and push all the buttons and break your stuff, basically.
Yeah.
That's all right. Unfortunately, Drum is in recovery, so he's not going to be able to clean up for me. So, I guess I better get on that.
Yeah, I'd say I feel bad, but I don't want to lie to you. No, but seriously, we'll have to drag you out of the Super Nintendo at some point, and you can come see the actual real world, and it's cool. Things are in 3D and with no pixels, and and again,
we have 3D. Didn't you ever play 3D World Runner?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
They're like real 3D.
No, it's not
scaling 2D.
It's really
real 3D.
Yeah, it's I don't know. You should go before you come into the real world. You should go hang out with a dude from Fez. He might be
kind of a transitional state there.
He might be able to clue you in a little bit. Perspective shifts. It's wild. It's wild.
Nice. All right. Well, very good. Well, thank y'all so much for coming on, and we're looking forward to the next episode for y'all.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man, and thanks for having us on here. So.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Anytime. as long as you don't keep going down rabbit
So-
holes, then we're gonna
Can't make
revisit
any
that.
promises.
Now, I found my way out before, but how do I get back out again?
I'm sorry, we are out of time.